皆様、本日は2025年1月7日、享年66歳で逝去されましたシャンティ国際ボランティア会元役員の八木沢勝正氏を偲ぶ会、シャンティの平和への思い、向かう未来にご参加いただき誠にありがとうございます。私、本日司会を務めますフリーアナウンサーの高橋彩と申します。どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。私、八木沢さんには去年の1月に難民キャンプの
I met Mr. Yagisawa during my trip to the refugee camps in January last year. That was my first time practically meeting Mr. Yagisawa. I asked him that I would like to visit a refugee camp, and I visited a refugee camp in Thailand. He was very generous and gracious, and since then have been in touch with Yagisawa since then and impressed by his passion and enthusiasm. Today, during the first part of this event commemorating Mr. Yagisawa's journey, we welcome Mr. Sanbe Gidō, Shanti advisor, who spearheaded Shanti's early years with Yagisawa. Reflecting on the early days, we also welcome Mr. Kōji, Tezuka, Shanti advisor, and I will join them in remembering Mr. Yagisawa and the pursuit of peace that Shanti aims for. Part 2, we welcome Tatsuya Hata, Vice President of Shanti, who will moderate the future of Shanti from an ASEAN perspective. From Waseda University, Professor Mitsuru Yamada, Faculty of Social Sciences, Aki Nakahara, the Director of Shanti Myanmar Office, to speak about peace building in Asia and the role of NGO. We are indebted to the Women's University of Arts for part of the equipment for their space expression domain. Thank you very much to the university for your graciousness. I would like to call on everyone for a moment of silence. Please stand up to the extent possible. Please remain seated if you choose to do so. And those of you on Zoom, please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Please take your seats. We would now like to proceed to welcoming Kyouei Wakabayashi, President of Shanti Volunteer Association, to say a few words of welcome. President Wakabayashi. There is a simultaneous interpretation services. If I may read off a script. We will now spend some time remember our former Asian Regional Director Katsumasa Yagisawa to also reflect on activities during the early days of Shanti, which he encountered, and his aspirations for peace as well. It's been more than 40 years since the founding of Shanti. Our activities have expanded in terms of location. Our organizations have expanded as well. And as people come in and out, as we send Mr. Yagisawa off, let us remember our aspirations for peace and to share those sentiments as well. The pursuit of peace through activities, as in the context of the world and also in the Asian region, may be quite small. That must be acknowledged. However, since the founding of the organization, we have connected with the civil society, both in terms of organizations, individuals, in a trusting relationship. that connection empowered us to face hardships and also hope for the future as well. In part two, we will address our insights on the ground of Shanti's activities as an all Shanti effort, how to be involved, and we would like to hear your insights as well. Please stay with us as long as time allows. Thank you. President Wakabayashi, thank you very much. Let us now proceed to the video presentation featuring Mr. Yagisawa's journey.
若かりし日の八木沢勝正さんです。シャンティ国際ボランティア会の前身である JSRC の一員としてカンボジアの難民キャンプに本を届けています。
5冊一応チェックしてくれますか。
それから現場一筋45年。シャンティ創世期からの中核メンバーとしてアジアの教育文化支援活動に身を捧げました。八木沢さんは1958年栃木県生まれ、冒険家上村直美に憧れ、学生時代は登山に明け暮れました。その頃海外で目にした児童労働の現場に衝撃を受けます。さらに突然訪れた兄の死。兄の分まで精一杯悔いのない生き方をしたいと考えるようになりました。そんな時、カンボジア難民キャンプのニュースを目にした八木沢さん。1980年、曹洞宗東南アジア難民救済会議 JSRC のドアを叩きます。いても立ってもいられませんでした。八木沢さんはそこで本が持つ力を目の当たりにします。その後、シャンティ国際ボランティア会が発足。八木沢さんはタイ、ラオス、カンボジアの各事務所やミャンマー難民事務所で所長を歴任します。また、発災直後の被災地に赴き、支援活動に携わりました。今のシャンティの基礎を中心となって作り上げました。タイ最大のクロントイスラムです。シャンティは長らくここに現地事務所を構えました。事務所には子ども図書館を設置し、スラムの子どもたちに学びの機会と居場所を、さらに縫製所を作り雇用も生んできました。八木沢さん自身もスラムに30年以上暮らしました。現場に暮らすことで、そこにある格差や貧困、差別の現実に体当たりで向き合おうとしたのです。八木沢さんが行ったプロジェクトがテレビ取材を受けました。当時ゴミだらけだったスラム。住民に呼びかけ、ゴミを集めた人に苗木を渡します。スラムを美しく変えたい。周囲からはできるわけないと笑われましたが、粘り強く続けました。
とにかく人間というのはですね、綺麗なところにはゴミを捨てないというのをですね、我々の活動の中でですね経験して、 うかなり確信したんですね。とにかく綺麗なモデルさえ作っちゃえば人間はゴミは捨てない。で少しずつですねこう植木鉢を増やしていったりですね、花と緑を増やしていったんですね。
ゴミであふれ返っていたスラムはやがてゴミのない緑の多い路地へと変化を遂げました。八木沢さんは発信にも積極的でした。メディアの特派員と親交を深め、アジアの現状を紹介して歩きました。スタディツアーも率先して受け入れてきました。地道な活動を続ける一方で、それだけでは不十分。大きなうねりを起こさなければ世界は変わらない。そう考えていました。八木沢さんが中心になって作り上げた大きなイベントがあります。アジア子ども文化祭。シャンティの活動地の普段厳しい環境に置かれた子どもたちが一堂に会し、それぞれの民族の伝統衣装を身につけ、踊りを披露し合うのです。自らの文化的背景を知り、異なる他人の文化を認め、共存する。まるで7つの色が響き合う虹のように。八木沢さんが追い求めた平和のイメージが現れた光景でした。八木沢さんが心情に掲げてきた言葉があります。ミッション、パッション、ドリーム。略してミパド。ミッションは人生に課せられた使命。パッションはそれを成し遂げる情熱。ドリームは困難を克服する明日への希望と勇気。まさに八木沢さんの生き方そのものです。
Ideally, this could do work not only singer or actress, for working for the society, for the children, people who are facing difficulty. So we should work together because there's media people, same mission and dream and passion, so right? So we have together working together better life for all.
現場主義を貫き、全身全霊で平和のあり方を追い求めた八木沢さん。67歳の誕生日を目前に控えていました。
As you saw, Mr. Yagisawa supported Shanti's early stages, committed to his work through much passion. In part one, let us remember Mr. Yagisawa together and reflect on Shanti's vision of building a peaceful society. Here are the panelists. Shanti Volunteer Association was preceded by the Japan Sotoshu Relief Committee, JSRC. This is a panelist working together with Mr. Yagisawa for a long time from the JSRC days. From the prefecture Yamagata, Buddhist priest of Shorinji, Shanti advisor, Sanbe Gidō. Also, another panelist from the JSRC days, currently the advisor of Ministry of Religion Buddhist Institute in Cambodia, Shanti's expert advisor Kōji Tezuka, and Ayano Kikuchi, director of Shanti's Cambodia office. Let us hear from advisor Sanbe under the theme of Shanti's aspirations for peace and what was Mr.Katsumasa Yagisawa like at the time of founding Shanti. Thank you very much to all for attending this event today. I've been tasked with stories, episodes from anecdotes from the early days of the organization. In the 1900s, the second half of the 20th century, in other words, the world was in the midst of the East-West Cold War. Southeast Asia was embroiled in a proxy war. The same goes for Vietnam as well as Cambodia. In the French Indochine, through Sihanouk's era, and the military coup by General Ronno, the military regime being established, going to China, Russian support of northern Vietnam, through the Khmer Rouge, the communist forces expanding its influence to eventually establish the Pol Pot regime. Conflicts followed. General Heng Samrin was supported by Vietnam, invading the country since the 1970s. For about 10 years, it's been a series of conflicts in Cambodia. Then, after 3 years and 8 months, the Pol Pot regime was felled. Many Cambodians came back, was fled to Thailand, who were in forced labor, which garnered much global media attention, including the Japanese public. The Soto Shu believed that the situation could not be abandoned as the same as Asian, part of the Asian community, and its individuals as well as Buddhists as well. In December 1979, the first fact-finding mission was sent by the Soto Shu sect. Jitsujo Arima was one of the members of that mission. In 1980, February, the second fact-finding mission was sent. In April, the Soto Shu Relief Committee, the JSRC, was established, calling for volunteers. The youth, the young Buddhists of the Soto Shu sect, and also from universities and training institutes, were asked to send volunteers. Many young Buddhists worked on ground as volunteers, one of whom was Katsumasa Yagisawa. I used to call him Yagisawa, so if I may continue with that tradition. Mr. Yagisawa just graduated from the Tohoku Welfare University, which was part of the Soto Shu group of universities. He volunteered to travel in July of 1980. I was at a Soto Shu training institute as well, and left a month later during my summer holidays to volunteer at a refugee camp in Thailand. That's when I first met Yagisawa. The fact-finding mission, led by Mr. Arima and others, was thinking with the others, what can JSRC do within budgetary constraints? Cambodian refugees, unlike other refugee communities, were deprived of education opportunities. During the 3 years and 8 months of Pol Pot regime, no educational opportunities. Schools were destroyed. Colleagues, teachers were killed as well. And because of the Pol Pot policy, all Khmer language was destroyed. There was no opportunity for children to be educated. There were temporary schools. All teachers had been massacred, but anyone who had a high school education, during the Pol Pot regime, a high school degree meant, high school education meant you would lose your life, you were killed. A Cambodian friend told me that anyone with glasses meant that person was educated, so the glass eyewear had to be removed. And if there are any signs on the face that the eyewear was worn, you would be killed. And the watch as well, any tan on the skin showing that there was a watch would be reason for murder. No one volunteered information that that person had received high school education. But eventually someone would volunteer, and that person with a high school education would be appointed a teacher, starting with simple alphabets, children to transcribe it on blackboards. That's how it began.
And so for efforts to learn reading and writing, people thinking about, well, what purpose would that be? Because there's nothing actually to read then. They had no textbooks, no picture books, newspapers. They were all completely gone. So learning how to read and write, that would not actually serve to purpose anymore. So this led to people not going to school as well. And so Mr. Arima and those having seen that situation, looking at how to have dreams and hope for children living in such circumstances, decided that they wanted to show Japanese picture books to the children there. And so by translating into Khmer language, the Cambodian language as well, to add the different script within that on top of the Japanese. So they started the project to deliver picture books from Japan to the children there. And from here, the Khmer language books were then used by the volunteers in the field as well, within the refugee camps, to share with the children there and show them to them. And through this process, it meant that they could see that the words that they were learning, they could read them immediately in the way in these books, and they could then look at how to read them out. And so this was a way that it was almost a way to really express them, to continue to look at, even like almost like eating the words in a way as they were coming within this. So this was the scenes that I was really moved by when I saw them. Before I had traveled there, looking at the volunteers with JSRC, I hadn't really been sure what we would be doing when we say support in a refugee camp. That's, sounds like for people who are living on the brink between life and death, how to support them in provision of food, for example, medical care, and so on. This is what I had envisioned before going there. But then being involved in a mobile library as a part, this is something which I was somewhat questioning this before I actually went to the field, but seeing these children as they were really eating up these letters on the word, I thought that this is really an incredible work, incredible project, and I was really feeling very moved and impressed by this. the seeking volunteers at the time, there were 3 particular conditions for volunteers at the time. One, that they could eat anything, sleep anywhere, and could drive a car. These were the only conditions in place. But so within this, it meant people did not have experience or teaching experience and so on. So it was really a group of amateurs. But it was because of that we could actually have many interesting things happen. For example, there was a pottery situation. If we can have the photograph of that brought to screen, thank you. So the Japanese volunteers, as they came in both Thailand and Cambodia, there are different clay urns which are used within everyday life as well. And so this is so that they can be cooled down somewhat. It almost functions instead of a refrigerator for keeping water cool, for example. So these are utensils used very regularly within lives in the region. And so looking at in the refugee camp, we thought, well, could these be something that could be created within the refugee camp? And so this was actually something done by a Japanese volunteer and using these Japanese techniques to create the urns. But at first, it wasn't really working so smoothly. And so from there, they went also within this pottery using the wheel and so on to see how they could twist this way so that it could be done within the context and the environment as well. And the different methods which were being used, so putting, for example, as we can see in the photograph, using this wooden utensil and then actually twisting, because there was no wheel to turn it automatically, the humans then twisting this around. Within Cambodia, this was something that women usually within the custom had already been creating. And so we saw this as something really quite wonderful as a way to bring or this person then became the teacher within the pottery classroom. And this is something which was possible because it was a group of amateurs that could learn together. So the volunteers, not just in the position of teaching unilaterally or in a one-way direction, but it was so that people could also learn from the local community members as well. This was the kind of thing which was possible because of the nature of the volunteerism. And this has led to the real way of thinking of Shanti, that is learning together, living together. And from there, based on this learning together, living together, and what is possible because of the fact actually that it was a group of amateurs rather than professionals in the field, is when Yagisawa then for 30 years was living in the Klongtoi slum, active there, and what he could see from being part of the community and creating the activities there. I think this was really at the foundation. And it's often mentioned when we talk about NGOs or volunteering, and what is important within these activities, we often say a warm heart and a cool head, apparently. But within the Buddhist way of thinking, we could express this as compassion and wisdom. By the feeling of wanting to do something to serve other people is somewhat like the engine of a car. Without the engine, the car doesn't have the momentum to move forward. However, at the same time, just an engine would mean that the car would, go ahead without any kind of direction. This is something that often happens in volunteers, it could be said. People have just their own passion and they push forward in their own direction, which can cause trouble for those around them. So what is necessary there is something which can control the car, give it direction, like the handles. And this is what I see as wisdom, this capacity to bring direction and control as well. And it is when this compassion and wisdom comes together that this is what we would like to see in volunteers. And it is when both of these two functions come together. That was Jitsujo Arima, I believe, in the center photograph here. And Mr. Arima's teachings were then shared. And it was often one of the words he spoke about was the socialization of compassion. And I think that Yagisawa really embodied this. And Mr. Arima's, what he often spoke about was that volunteers, well, they're just like, fish on the bottom there. They go into the mud, they come through from there, and from that lower levels of the river, that's where they see society and the flows. And I really believe that Yagisawa followed that teachings, going right into the depths of the muds within the slum, putting both of his feet down on the ground there and looking at what was necessary, what would be useful, what could be done, and what he could see from that ground level perspective. And this really led into or became Shanti's work. And so the word Shanti itself in the Sanskrit language, and also from the Soto Zen Buddhism, well, it was the Soto Volunteer Association, but when it was becoming or incorporated as an organization, decided to change the name here. And they wanted to keep the initials of S, so from the Soto, and this was where the word Shanti was selected. If it's just translated directly, it means Shanti, but it is not only peace as a structure, but it is looking at the peace, the calm, within each and every person's heart. And by expanding this to the broader society, this is how to create a peaceful world. This is the way of thinking, the initiative behind this. And so the father of this, this was really where this teaching and this way of thinking came from. And from here, this is where the true peace can be created within globalism, and people seeing that their countries should be given first priority is where the current contemporary society is today. And I think it is in those gaps between those that Shanti's ideals is looking for a paradigm shift in the world today as well. And so as in from the teachings of Mr. Arima and bringing this into action is what I think will be continuing and to be realized from now as well. So this is what I would like to share, first of all, about the very beginnings. Thank you very much. So first of all, thank you, Mr. Sanbe, for your words. We will hear from you again in a little while. Thank you very much. We would like to continue. So thank you for joining us in front. So Mr. Tezuka has also been involved with Shanti from the very beginning. What are your thoughts after hearing Mr. Sanbe's words? Yes, well, we wish that Yagisawa would be here with us and joining us in this conversation, but it's really passed in just a moment, these 40-some years. And so I was involved in, first of all, JSRC, and actually, it was Mr. Sanbe who led to my first meeting JSRC. If it wasn't for him, then I would not have joined JSRC, and I wouldn't be sitting here today either. At the time, and he was involved as a volunteer in JSRC and was looking for more volunteers, actually. And I personally, at the time, I was studying Buddhism in the Graduate School of Komazama University. I think that I was in my second year, and that was when I first met Mr. Sanbe, when he was looking for new volunteers. And so they spoke about needing or looking for staff in the refugee camp. So this was an invitation from outside, but then also from within myself, also my motivation, I would like to share a little bit. So in my 2 years of my master's program, I was thinking, well, what should I be doing next? My advisor, Professor Hirai, was saying to me, well, are you going to go on to do a PhD, or, what will you be doing this? And I said, well, let me think about it a little bit. I wasn't sure. At the time, UNICEF had a sort of students' association, and I had been involved there as well. Those of you who remember the early 1980s will remember that there was the very severe famine in Africa at the time. And I was also interested within these disparities in wealth in society as well. And as I had studied Buddhism somewhat as well, I was looking at, well, how I could, there is words that all living beings have a nature of Buddha within them. Each different living thing has that seed of becoming the Buddha in a way. This is one of the thinking. And when I heard this, first of all, I was thinking, well, yes, if that's the case, but isn't the real world, the reality out there completely different? We see that there are so many different things happening in the world today that do not connect with that. So I was thinking, well, what really is Buddhism? I was having these questions within myself. And so this is when I thought, well, I would like to see firsthand the reality of what is happening around the world. And so seeing that both this invitation from the outside and my internal motivation came together in this way. Mr. Sanbe, how or what was in your mind when you were inviting him? Anyone was okay, we just needed help. And so the Soto Volunteer Association, when we were just looking for people for that, there wasn't anybody who put their hand up to join, actually. So when I was looking for someone, anyone would have been okay, to be honest. And there was someone in between who introduced us. But when I was speaking with that person, they said, okay, well, I'll go and have a look, see if I can find someone. And that was when Mr. Tezuka came. And I said, are you going, will you go? And he said, yes, I will. And really? I said, really, are you sure? And so I really fate that we came together in this way. What was your first impression of him? It was exactly as he's just shared now. No change at all from today. And for me also, at first, I don't really remember at first, but then at the end of March, just before it was decided to go, I remember Mr. Sanbe. Well, the office at the time was in Gotanda, and he said, well, let's have a talk. So I went to meet him in a cafe near their office. And so we were having a coffee together, and he was saying, well, Mr. Tezuka, it's a very small organization, but are you sure you're going to go? And I said, yes, I will. And after that, that was when I went to visit the office, and it was really tiny. It was just a one-room apartment. But even regardless of that, I still felt the desire of wanting to go.
So it started with passion. You were driven by passion. Do we have the next photo ready? There's one valuable picture. Can you see it? Mr. Tezuka? Who is this young guy? It does seem that this picture is aged. This is Mr. Tatsuya in a Thai refugee camps. This was the first time you entered a refugee camp. Do you remember? Well, I think this was 6 months after my arrival. I arrived in March of 1983. The youth program that I led had activities like this. Tomoko Yamauchi, my colleague, joined me as well, and she took over this program. Later, she was sent to the Laos refugee camp, and I first arrived in Thailand in the Bangkok office first, really low-key work. Khmer language books were being published, a few hundreds of them. I was asked to sort the books. I know nothing about the Khmer language. I work with the Cambodian colleague, Saiko-san, and assistants as well. What we did was to pack the books, and then that's for 6 months, then relocated to the Kyouei refugee camp. As Mr. Sanbe said, when I arrived at the refugee camp, there were 60 to 70,000 refugees. A fairly large camp left an indelible impression on me. As you see, who took this picture? It's almost miraculous that this picture is still around. So we have Yagisawa on the left-hand side. I'm agreeing to, and Hata is not listening at all. So this is Vice President Hata who's looking in this direction. Yes, this was an office. We were all cohabiting in a dorm, and there were staff, senior staff as well. So I hear that you kind of shared a room. Not here, but in the Bangkok office, we had to share a room. I think that was a connection continuing till today. So Yagisawa, yourself, and Tezuka living together in a very tight, close-knit environment. Yes, it was close-knit. It was a two-story building wooden floors in Bangkok, this office in Bangkok. The second floor was the dorms. There were several rooms. We had the largest room, 3 of us with a very thin mattress, one thin blanket. I think we were taking turns sleeping, morning to night, always together, never fought. That's amazing. You would think that there would be problems if you are together that long. No, nothing. I can promise you that. Any anecdotes with Mr. Yagisawa from those days? Mr. Yagisawa was already there for 4 years before our arrival. Many experiences. Mr. Yagisawa was already fluent in the Thai language. As legend goes, someone invited him to go for a drink, and he said no, and he just studied Thai in the restroom. The policy for Shanti was to localize in the community, to be embedded in the embedded. 3 hours of Thai language education in the morning, same in the afternoon, so every day, 6 hours. What I remember, Mr. Hata is has a keen sense of language, very popular with the Thai language teachers, young teachers as well. He was invited to teacher's house near the Menam River. All of us were invited to that teacher's house. We used to talk a lot, not just refugee issues, because Yagisawa was very knowledgeable about the Thai situation, the rural community situation, and the fact that the slums are all about poverty and how rural poverty must be resolved. Since I knew nothing about the poverty issue, I just followed Yagisawa around the slum to learn. Oh, well, this brings back memories as well. We have teacher Prateep, next to Yagisawa. Yagisawa was a fun guy. Next to Yagisawa is Yamauchi, Miss Yamauchi, my colleague. And then we have Izumi, Atsuko Izumi. Then I'm the one with a mustache. Many people have a misconception that Yagisawa is a serious guy, but actually Mr. Yagisawa loved jokes, very light-hearted. Shino as well, but Yagisawa's joke kind of seep into you. The first time is not that funny, but he would repeat a joke 3 times, which is then explosively funny. So it was almost infectious. So it seemed like an enjoyable life you had, good life you had then. You mentioned that Mr. Yagisawa was all about the mission, the passion, and he had a dream. Mr. Yagisawa, what was Mr. Yagisawa's vision about society? Well, as you see in the photo, this was the center in Thailand, the refugee camp. There was a dorm in Arayabdratet. Yagisawa invited us to go see teacher Pratep, while he already knew the teacher already back in Tohoku Welfare University. So this place we went to was in the slums, but not like today. It was all barracks, sewage, open sewage, and to visit Pratep's foundation. It was quite scary at first, but Pratep Teacher Protep was very cheerful with warm sawadika and very impressed. I never thought that Hata would marry Pratip and Yagisawa marrying Rataban. Never thought that would happen. That was the first encounter. After which, Yagisawa decided, Mr. Yagisawa started living in the slums exactly after his marriage, of course. And Mr. Hata as well, meeting Pratep, teacher Pratep. Right near the Bangkok office, I used to visit Yagisawa at his home. It was just daily conversations. And as you see, this was a slum full of garbage. And nobody believed that he would start living in a slum. This may have been the first Swampu, a slum. That was his first location for him to live in a slum. Mrs. Yagisawa had dreams, but not analytical. It was more of a collaborative approach with the slum community, and the slum community would eventually join him. That's how he was. The fact that Mr. Yagisawa was able to embody such passion and dreams, what was the basis? I think his older brother's death was a motivation. Mr. Yagisawa was the first one to jump into a difficult situation in a refugee camp. Mr. Sanbe would know better. The first camp was Sakeo camp and then Koidan camp. Miss Yagisawa went to the Koidan camp hitchhiking. There were no dorms, so he had to borrow space to stay from the JVC, Japan Volunteer Center. You see border patrol on the way to Koidan. Normally, it's not for the faint-hearted, but Yagisawa would go to it alone to bring books to the refugee camp. Yagisawa was quite impressive in his courage to go to it alone. Mr. Sanbe, you arrived in 1980, and what was your engagement with Shanti? My engagement with Shanti started with the founding of SVA, Shanti Volunteer Center. I was a trainee with the Sotoshu Training Center. I visited for 2 months, only for 2 months, using my summer holidays. Once I came back, I was told that JSRC would cease its activities, but they were already projects on the ground. So volunteers came together and discussed how to continue with the program in my apartment in Kamiuma, Setagaya, and that's how it began. The activities or our vision was conveyed to Mr. Arima so that there would be an organization taking over the activities of JSRC. The Sotoshu Volunteer Center was set up in 1980, August the 10th. And how to push the activities was something I had to work on. No funding. An office, a one-room office, was leased in Gotanda. With 10 people, someone has to stand up. It was that small. With no no room or no funding to buy desk chairs and book shelves. So I took everything I had to that office, and I visited Eheji to train. And once I came back, a student volunteer would tell me that there was a bookshelf somewhere at a cross section, or there was an office chair. So we would rent a car just to pick up disposed furniture. Back then, there were a lot lying around. Actually, really, they were literally on the ground, and we didn't steal anything, but mind you. So that's how the office was set up. That's what I did. Also, to fundraise, a membership system was set up. Membership cards was produced and sent. So there was a lot of struggle, it seems. Despite that, Mr. Yagisawa and your staff still talked about your vision for society. Mr. Yagisawa believed that you stick your feet in the mud and you look up. There is a society that's not yet visible. That is what a dream is about. So this was not an invisible dream, but this was a visible dream that can be achieved with certain steps. And he would tell us at the office what has to be done, but there was no funding to do that.
So when we were thinking, well, what should we do about this? And this was when speaking with Mr. Arima, looking at how, what we were really just focusing on is we had no money, so how we could raise that. As was mentioned here, so you had rather than having an objective and working towards this, it was like that objective, the goals came about naturally. Yes, that's right. And I think things that you cannot see unless you're actually standing there in place. And this is where our really field-centered way of thinking, which Mr. Yagisawa took on as well. So jumping into that scene there and seeing what you can see from being in the center of where things are actually happening. Yes, that's right. As Mr. Sanbe said, and starting from the camp in Cambodia, but when I was there in Surin province, in very rural part, this is where they started the library project there as well. But within the refugee camp, looking together with the Thai staff that we were together as well in Bansuri. And this is when, so they're in Thailand, but it is from the Khmer, the Cambodian culture. There was someone there called Terapon who was involved in different library-related work. And so speaking with Mr. Yagisawa, looking at different issues of poverty and how these could be dealt with by or through education. And so this is when, right from the very early in the morning, they'd been opening this center in Bansurai in Surin province. And so his wife, Ponchin, also really warmly welcomed us as well. It was a very small project at first, but this school library in Bansawai village was when we really started. And this is where the activities sort of grew and expanded from there. So the citizens' library, a kindergarten, tree planting and environmental activities, and not only in Bansawai village as well, but a mobile library into other neighboring villages as well. And there are sort of three main parts within the community there as well. One is the spiritual pillar, which is the priest of the local temple. The next is education, so the principal of the local high school. And the second is the administration, so this is the mayor of the village. And so when Mr. Yagisawa went to speak together with those different key people, and this is how it started to build this relationship as well. And then not only this, but also to start to accept people from Japan as well on tours in ways, reflecting on ways of thinking and so on as well. And so it started very small, but then expanded and grew from there. And I think this was because of them. So it wasn't that it was all decided from the beginning, but through conducting the activities, it started to expand further and further. Yes, and these activities are continuing even now. Usually it would be, okay, it's a 10-year plan, and then at the end it's finished, but that's not the case at all. So thank you very much, and sorry for keeping you waiting, but from now we have the Shanti of course, we have the very long history of the work in Cambodia, and we're very glad to hear from the director of the Cambodia office of Shanti, Ayano Kikuchi, who will be joining us and sharing about how this long history is being carried on into the contemporary work in Cambodia. Ms. Kikuchi, can you hear us? Yes, hello, everybody. Thank you very much for allowing me to join online. Thank you. Ms. Kikuchi, hearing the different words from now, what is your impressions? Yes, there was a lot of things that I didn't know about the period when everybody was so young, which was really very new for me to hear. And Mr. Yagisawa really being deeply embroiled in the local community as well was something that has really reminded me of the importance of doing this. And many of the words that I heard really reminded me of the Mr. Yagisawa that I knew as well. Thank you very much. So, Ms. Kikuchi, you have also been involved in the refugee camp in Myanmar, Burma, and working together with Mr. Yagisawa there as well. Can you share some of your memories of him? Yes, so from 2011 until 2018, for 7 years, I was working in the refugee camp on the border of Thailand and Myanmar, involved in the library activities there. And I had the opportunity to create many memories with Mr. Yagisawa during that period. He visited from Bangkok to the border area many times, very regularly, and he was able to also convey a lot of information that people were not aware of about the reality of the situation within the refugee camp as well. He always had this really heavy bag that he was carrying around, and he had his SLR, a very heavy camera, around his neck at all times as well. And he was always ready to rush straight to the field. When he was listening to people speaking, he always had his pen and notebook ready, and I can really have this vision of him so freshly in my memory now, even today. There are so many things that I remember about him, but one of the activities involved in, for example, the Refugee Children's Festival, or also when there was emergency humanitarian aid required in times of disaster and so on in the refugee camp. And of course, he was involved in these as well. But one of the things which left a great impression on me was on June 20, the World Refugee Day, an event held to commemorate this day. He was involved very deeply, not only in education, but also in arts, in physical education, sports, many different fields, and connecting those together within his support. And he was always emphasizing the importance of this as well. So on World Refugee Day, he would have, for example, the Education and Sports Festival, having soccer or football events within the refugee camp, inviting former J-League soccer players, also having different, for example, soccer clinics for the children in the camp and so on as well. And one of the things I really feel it was only possible because it was Mr. Yagisawa himself was going beyond the border of the person supporting and the beneficiaries, but really creating a space where anybody could join in together as well. And I think he was really wonderful at creating these kind of spaces and opportunities. Both the children and also the leaders, the adults of the camp, also J-League members, the Japanese embassy in Thailand, or also Japanese reporters who are correspondents in Thailand. They were all brought in to really make this event a great success as well. And I remember this so clearly even today. At the time, the children in the refugee camp, by looking at the footwork of the professional soccer player, they were so excited, and I remember their reaction to that. And also, we also had a friendly match between the leaders of the refugee camp and the Japanese community who were there. So really playing together, sweating together, giving each other high fives and so on. These images are really burned in my memory so clearly. So for everybody to be able to stand on the same foundation at the same level, to share a meal together, to share these sports together, and to create these events together as well, this co-creation, I think, is a way that people could really communicate in a very deep way together. And that is exactly the kind of space and atmosphere that Mr. Yagisawa was able to create. His passion really was such a catalyst which led to everybody's, well, the passion being spread to all of the other people as well. That's the impression that I have of him. And so looking at this concept of living together, I think, is very much demonstrated in these examples. Ms. Kikuchi, next year, the Cambodia office will reach its 35th anniversary. So looking at, well, how are you feeling as the director of this office, which Mr. Yagisawa was also the director of in the past as well? Well, yes, we have a very long history of the Cambodia office here. As mentioned, it will be 35th anniversary next year. But with the long history, of course, there is a great responsibility, I feel, in a way. But working together with the local staff, also ensuring that we can enjoy ourselves in all of our work as well. And also, Cambodia and looking at people who have, for example, fled to other neighboring countries, as was mentioned by Mr. Sanbe and others. Now that more than 30 years have passed, many people are returning to Cambodia, and there is very rapid economic development occurring within the country as well. So looking at the social situation, education situation, there are many drastic changes since the very beginning days. So looking at what our role as an NGO should be now, looking at these changes is something that we are thinking about on a constant basis. And as we're thinking about that, I think that our greatest mission, if we look at the different disparities within society, poverty and so on, how we can create change in regards to this, and as the role of a non-government organization to ensure that each and every citizen can take on agency to be engaged, involved in that change as well, and how we can become a catalyst for that. This is something which remains constant since Mr. Yagisawa's time, and which I feel we are really carrying on his legacy. So the staff members locally, how do you feel that they feel about their Shanti's values and vision? For the local staff, our vision, what we are aiming for, is first of all the human dignity of each and every person, and to be able to create a peaceful society where people can have hope for the future as well. And so we have, as Mr. Tezuka, the expert advisor, has mentioned, sometimes we also have staff seminars, for example, to share these vision and these words and so on with our local staff members as well. And through such opportunities, the local staff members very much not only recognize the values of Shanti, but also seeing our role as a catalyst. Through this, they themselves as well see their own, how they can support this efforts to live and to make change, to create a more peaceful society. I think this is very much shared by our local staff as well. And in addition, another thing which I personally place great value on as well is, as we are looking, of course, conveying the foundations of Shanti, but not only this, looking at within the current situation, what should we be doing today to discuss this together, and to have such opportunities is something which I place great efforts in as well. In November of 2023, some of the members from the Cambodia office visited Thailand together. And at that time, as we can see in this photograph, Mr. Yagisawa came to the border to welcome us. And from there, we went to Ban Sawai to visit the school in Thailand, to visit the expectations there, and also visit people who had moved from Cambodia and were living in the Klong Toi slum in Bangkok, for example. And this is something that was my last opportunity to meet Mr. Yagisawa in person, unfortunately. But at that time, I remember he said to me, Ayano, social issues are all beyond national borders. So this is why also together traveling with the local staff members to travel across borders and to work on these cross-border issues together is very important. And these words that he shared with me on that occasion, I am really not able to forget to this day. And so with the local staff members as well, as we traveled together to Thailand, I think that this has also left a great impression on each of them personally as well. Mr. Yagisawa's thoughts, and what I can personally do as well is to be able to both share the foundations and the values of Shanti, but not only that, to together think about what steps we should take together next, together with the local staff as well, and to implement and take action that together. I think that's what I personally can do to take on the legacy and carry on from Mr. Yagisawa. Thank you very much. So looking back at these very first moments, we have these people who have been involved since the very beginning. Is there anything that you would like to ask of Mr. Sanbe and Mr. Tezuka? Well, yes, I think Mr. Sanbe, as he mentioned, I think he did touch on it a little bit. But looking at the situation in the world today, and there is the rule through power, through strength, for example, has been becoming stronger. Also, the speed of development, for example, ICT developments here in Cambodia, of course, and also the power of certain individuals who have various, capital or wealth and so on as well. So looking at how we can continue to share the same values and look at people's internal changes and development and value that, but at the same time, look at how we can create a peaceful society together is becoming rather difficult within the circumstances of the world today. But I think it is for that very reason that there is also a great amount that we can do as Shanti or as NGO staff members as well to build a more peaceful society. So I'd like to ask their thoughts in regards to this. Mr. Tezuka, what would be your response? Well, yes, exactly. This is something which really hits me quite strongly. But today, when we look at the society, when I think about 40 years ago, I think today the international situation, it has not really improved, unfortunately. At the time, the number, for example, of refugees has increased from about 12 million at that time. Now, even today, there is also more and more war and conflicts continuing throughout the world, and people are perhaps losing hope in this situation as well. And so it is within this that we need to look at, within these severe circumstances, how we can think together to have dreams in mind and go step by step towards realizing this as well. And of course, as you are aware, Yagisawa was also not only the project staff, but even drivers, cleaners, caretakers, and so on, really working together and having everybody participate in these trainings and discussions and so on together as well. And this is really the essence of Shanti in a way, everybody understanding and sharing and doing this together. No matter what kind of world, what kind of society we are in, but not to lose hope, no matter what. How about Mr. Sanbe? And in regards to this,
we live in times when exactly Shanti ideals are being sought, so that there's a peace of mind and confidence by everyone. This may be a slow-paced initiative, but it is important to believe that the ideal society can be achieved. Ms. Kikuchi, your thoughts? Well, reflecting on myself and thinking of the local staff and Shanti staff in Tokyo, we all share the same values. To have faith in those values and to keep pace with each other and to move forward are things that I take back from everyone. Now, being hopeful without a failure, without being disappointed, can be difficult. How did you manage to keep up the faith? We talk about MIPA, the mission, passion, and dream. Mission, passion, dream. Yagisawa's ideals. There was one more. Yagisawa said maybe mission, passion, and dream may lead to arrogance. So honesty would be necessary as well to keep, to maintain the humility. And honesty may be the most difficult value in interactions. Yagisawa always used to say refugees living in slums, always facing the largest hardships, never failing to remember those facing the largest hardships, and that never left him. Sanbe-san, what do you think? We were complete amateurs. This was a bunch of amateurs setting up an organization, and that's what's the value of the organization. No matter how much knowledge or experience you accumulate, there isn't anyone who lived twice, so we're all amateurs in life. It's that humility about being an amateur that gives motivation to learn and to work together. So I am all for amateurs. It is almost time to wrap up part 1, and with that note, we would like to wrap up part 1. Thank you, Ms. Kikuchi, for joining us online. Thank you.
お二人もありがとうございました。
Thank you to the two panelists as well.
それでは第2部を開始いたします。
We would now like to begin part 2. Here are the panelists for part 2. From Waseda University, Faculty of Social Sciences, Chair of Emergency Humanitarian Assistant Professor Mitsuru Yamada. From Shanti Volunteer Association, Myanmar, Burma, a Refugee Office Director, Myanmar Office Director Aki Nakahara, to be moderated by Vice President of Shanti Volunteer Association, Tatsuya Hata. Director Nakahara will join us online. At this time, I would like to rely on Vice President Hata to moderate. Thank you, Ms. Takahashi. At this time, we would like to shift angles a little bit to proceed with part 2 of today's event, commemorative event. Part 1 was quite impressive. It still resonates with us, Yagisawa's perception about peace, the fact that people should become flatfish, to work on the ground. Do you hear me, Nakahara-san? Do you hear me okay? Yes, I hear you. Were you here with us for part 1? Yes, I was. I learned a lot. You learned a lot, did you? Could you share some of your impressions? I've been involved in the organization as a staff member for a long time, so a lot of it resonated with me already. But since its founding, the organization was consistent about its vision, and it was clear that vision has been implemented consistently. Thank you. We'd love to hear from you later on. We also would like to talk about peace building, international relations, and we're privileged to welcome Professor Yamada, who is an expert in those fields. This is a valuable opportunity to hear from Professor Yamada. What are your impressions so far? Those of you who have been active on the ground, particularly with respect to Mr. Yagisawa, the video presentation left an indelible impression on me, as well as the concept of Mipado, Mission, Passion, Dream. Mipado. There's a lot of buzz around sustainability. Mipado, together with honesty, as the fourth word. All we need are those 4 words to achieve SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you. This is an in-depth discussion today we have ready for part 2. This is the future, the theme is the future of Shanti from an ASEAN perspective. As we have addressed during part 1 rather, Shanti is deeply embedded in its activities in the ASEAN region, starting with Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Afghanistan, Nepal. They work country by country activities, but now there is more awareness how an inter-regional approach, cross-regional approach will be required, and also the importance of emergency humanitarian assistance in rebooting processes. For example, Shanti has more activities in the mid to long-term mid to long-term range to achieve peace. And what is the direction Shanti would head to? Yagisawa, the first generation staff, led the way, and he passed away very suddenly. But we cannot wallow in our grief forever. And we should reflect on what Shanti can do in a mid to long-term range together. And what Shanti has done is something to reflect on, but I would like to skip over some details because a lot has been addressed in the first half. I became involved in 1984. Yagisawa led the way. Then came Tezuka and myself as well. In 1984, between Thailand and Myanmar, there was a large-scale strife or conflict between the current army with the Burmese and the current nation were in a conflict, and there are about 9 refugee camps as a repercussions of those days. Refugee issues in Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, in short, Indochine refugee issue garnered much attention in the 1970s. Right now, the Myanmar refugee issue is still present. There is also the issue of urban refugees, about 5,500 of them, and also an increase in stateless persons. In other words, refugees and IDPs gave birth to kids who don't have a nationality. 600,000 of them are stateless persons. This is the context in which Shanti has embedded itself in rural and slum communities across borders until today. The central activities has been represented by the library activity, which epitomizes Shanti's vision. In my mind, I started working in 1984, working in agrarian communities in Thailand and also in refugee camps as well. Of the activities that left an indelible impression on me, together with Mr. Yagisawa, there are actually 2. One occasion, a large event was in 1991 when a refugee camp in Cambodia was going to be closed. That was the agreement. And then in 1992, repatriation began. What Shanti did was those people who passed away in refugee camps, Shanti started recovering their remains in the refugee camps, in the temples in the refugee camps, quote-unquote temples, since no religious institutions could be set up according to Thai rules, but a facility that was built in lieu of a real temple was a site for the remains, and the remains were recovered and to return to different temples, to repatriate the remains to different temples in Cambodia by gaining the support of those who came from that local community. One more thing, in the Lao camp, in Bambinai refugee camp, Shanti was instrumental in setting up a printing press and libraries as well, and other forms of refugee assistance. This location, this was where people with Hansen's disease, leprosy, were living in the camp, meaning they were quite marginalized, ostracized as well by other people. We chose a site for activities to set up libraries and printing presses. As you see, Kyouei, one of our volunteers, joined our organization through the other volunteer center. This is a picture from where the kids are paying a lot of attention, attract to reading night. And people of all ages would gather together through that activity. This is really representative of a Shanti activity. So in the context of refugee camps, there are operations, Shanti operations in Myanmar, refugee camps also inside Myanmar as well. We'd like to hear from Ms. Nakahara, someone with a perspective working on the ground. Nakahara-san? Thank you very much. As introduced, I'm Nakahara from the Myanmar office. I've been looking forward to this opportunity. I'm joining from our Yangon office. If I may continue, please continue. A little bit about myself as a way of introduction. In 1996, I arrived in Bangkok, Thailand, in Kron Toi slum to engage with the Duan Platif Foundation set up by Plantif, the teacher Plantif, to engage with educational support of kids for 2.5 years as a volunteer. Then encountered Shanti, which had an office in the same slum. There were 5 staff members, including the head of the office, who was a Japanese national. And I got quite close to them. After working as a volunteer in Thailand, I came back to. I was planning to come back to Japan and find a job. But after spending some time in the slum, I became aware of the depth of societal issues in the community acutely, and that those issues take time to resolve, are not easily resolved. I was motivated to be embedded in the community, to support the people in the community, and not as a volunteer, but as a professional. So the motivation was to work for an NGO. That motivation became stronger. It was when I was employed by the Thai office of Shanti in 1998, joined Shanti, headed the slum regional development project, worked on rather the slum regional development project, relocated to Myanmar in August of 2001, the Refugee Assistance Office, and since then, for 6 years, engaged in education support at refugee camps. A little bit about the refugee camp situation on the Thailand side, at the border of Thailand and Myanmar. The refugee camp on the Thailand side, on the Thai side, as Mr. Hata mentioned, was set up in 1984. So it's been more than 40 years since its establishment. Myanmar internally is a multi-ethnic country known for its multi-ethnicity, but between the military regime of Myanmar and the minority tribal groups, there's been a long-standing, protracted military conflict, and many Karens and Karenni people have fled to Thailand and forced to lead their lives in refugee camps. After 1984, the number of refugees have on the upward trend, at one point exceeding 150,000. In 2005, due to the third country resettlement program, and Japan, by the way, launched this project as a pilot project in 2010 as well, to accept people from refugee camps. After which, in Myanmar in 2011, government came under civilian control. There was a civilian transfer. In 2012, a ceasefire agreement was signed between the Myanmar government and the current coalition in 2016 because of the repatriation program in Myanmar. On the Thai side, there was a drop in the number of refugees. But still today, there are approximately 90,000 people living in the refugee camp. In 2021, due to the political change or turmoil in Myanmar, the repatriation program that began in 2016 was suspended temporarily. The opportunity to repatriate was lost. Third country settlement, spearheaded by the U.S., was also suspended, which gives rise to a protracted situation, existence of the refugee camps. Funding became an issue for NGOs, children who grew up in the refugee camps with no opportunity for higher education and employment. And there are concerns about the prospects of youth without any hopes or dreams. According to the UNHCR, the UN organization, within Myanmar, there are approximately 3.2 million IDPs. 57,000 people flee to neighboring countries, which are Thailand, India, and Bangladesh. The backdrop to that is the protracted conflict in Myanmar. Within a year, in recent 1 year, 1 million people have been forced to flee, have been displaced. On both the Thailand side and the Myanmar side, the situation of refugees and IDPs will be prolonged, and that is the great concern. A protracted situation is of great concern. In refugee camps, Shanti operates library activities. I would like to address that. On the right-hand side, the right-hand picture shows a gentleman called Rapetu. Shanti launched library activities in refugee camps. Children without anything to do, or people in general without anything to do, can now have a place to go. Regardless of their age group, religion, library is a place to gather, and gradually that awareness spread. Rapetu was a member of the library committee at the Umpiam refugee camp. Rapetu is a teacher, very passionate about teaching, very interested, engaged in Shanti's library activities, and no matter how busy he may be, always attending the library operational meetings. Rapetu was a committee member for about 4 years when he made the following comments about Shanti's library activities. When I heard that Shanti was going to establish a library in our camp, I was very happy, and I was looking forward to that library, what kind of library it would be. After its opening, many children learned how the joy of reading picture books. The youth, adults, senior people were motivated to visit the library to read. The library activities expanded to learning opportunities for traditional instruments and dances, interactions between the senior members of the community and children, and for the youth to participate in the community and overall contributing to the development of the community. The growth of each individual refugee is the most cherished part of our community, and that is something we glean from the library. And this library we have to cherish with our own hands. Also added that many NGOs are supporting our community. Shanti is one of such NGOs, but Shanti is different in what they do from the others. So this is what he said, and I hear this kind of comments quite often in my work in the refugee camps. We've been engaged in this activity as a natural course extension of our work. The fact that it's perceived this way, Shanti's activities are perceived this way by the community, and the fact that what left a great impression on the refugee camp is the library, Shanti's library activity gives us pause in terms of what we do. There was someone who was ill, unfortunately could not get the relevant treatment and passed away. Rapitu-san, that is Rapitu-san, passed away, unfortunately. Now, there are cultural heritage activities in the library as well. As the library activities expanded, many people began to perceive the library as their second home and as a place where the current people's culture can be protected. Despite being displaced from their homeland and becoming refugees, this is a place where they can feel proud of their ethnicity and to share with their children who are the next generation. I believe the library was aligned with those adult values held by adults. During our activities, support activities, assistance activities at refugee camps, there was one anecdote that reminded us of the significance of activities, going all the way back to the Second World War and a connection between the Japanese nationals and the Karens. There were some young people, but the older people told us that my grandparents were killed by a Japanese soldier. The Japanese suppressed the Karens. This was often mentioned, and I knew nothing about that history, so I was quite embarrassed. After Japan lost the war, many Japanese soldiers were held by the Karens who were previously their enemies. And by coincidence, in Mesod, when I stayed at Mesod, I had an opportunity of meeting a Japanese soldier who remained in Thailand. This person said, "I'm indebted to those people. I was helped by those people." And so the fact that the Japanese organization is supporting the Karens is something that gives me great joy. This was a moment how important it is to engage in international relief work by remembering history as well. In Myanmar, right now, Shanti operations began in 2014, centered around the library activities, also engaging in education and cultural assistance. Last year, in 2024, Shanti commemorated its 10th anniversary. In the meantime, 30 school buildings were established, mostly public and religious schools, 78 libraries of different sizes, 26 titles of picture books, 5 titles of paper slides were published, training library stakeholders and teachers well. After the political turmoil, to the extent possible, Shanti is still working to build schools and libraries, to engage in library activities, and engaging in read-a-book activities by teachers and staff. Shanti is also rendering emergency assistance work by distributing stationery to the extent possible at schools, Buddhist areas, and schools. It's been 4 years since the political change in Myanmar. Conflict is ongoing. Concern about a protracted situation can be about many issues. Foreign capital companies, including Japanese capital companies, are leaving the country. There is much disruption in the economy, meaning that giving rise to poverty, and people are leaving the country, therefore causing a talent drain and brain drain as well. And from a safety standpoint, NGOs cannot render adequate assistance from a both funding and safety perspective, while there is more demand for assistance, and there's a dilemma of not being able to deliver what is actually needed. But the major concern is the division between the people after the political turmoil. There was a bipolar structure, but now it's beyond that, such that there is a strife between quagmire of different civilian organization, ethnic groups. People who are not direct actors are now part of the conflict, leading to collapse of human relations, friends becoming enemies overnight. This division cannot be narrowed, not right away, changing society from its foundation and affecting the future of the country. This is a terrifying situation. And for children living in a conflict are now ingrained with the value that division is a given, and perhaps may grow up to be adults who don't hesitate to fight. So even the visible strife, even when the visible strife is gone, invisible inner strife would not go away, such that struggles or conflicts never end in the future. That is my personal concern as well.
Thank you very much for those words. We can really see the weight of the situation in what you have shared with us. As I mentioned in the beginning, within the refugee camps or in Thailand, it is the issue, or within the region, it is the refugees of Myanmar, which is continuing as an issue. And as you are all very aware, it is extremely complicated and it is very difficult to see what will happen in the future. Internationally as well, we can see that there is the impact, for example, from the relations with China and Russia, and with India, of course, as well, which is a neighboring country. On the Thai side, also the engagement or the involvement of the various ASEAN member countries as well. However, within the actual lives of the people of Myanmar, we can see that the destruction and the despair that they must be in is really very difficult to think about, and your words really reminded us of that. In my previous role, well, actually now I am based in Thailand, but I was previously a university professor. Last year in March, I took an early retirement. And since April last year, I've returned to Thailand, where I'm now based in Bangkok. And what I feel in regards to this is looking at the issue of refugees from Myanmar and the overall situation of Myanmar, it is indeed very severe, not only from the aspect of refugees, but also when we look at, for example, migrant workers and the many people from Myanmar who are now in Thailand as well, and the many issues concerned. Shanti has from the very beginning been involved in the issues faced by refugees. Thailand is, when we look at the convention relating to the status of refugees, which was established by the United Nations in 1951, which we call the Refugee Convention, and also the protocol relating to refugees, which was signed in 1967. Thailand has still not ratified these. Japan ratified in 1981, which is just around the same period as Shanti began its work. Within the ASEAN region or Southeast Asia, Philippines has also ratified, as has Cambodia. And Timor-Leste also has ratified the convention. But other countries within Southeast Asia have not ratified this convention yet. This is also some additional information, but looking at, well, which countries are now receiving the highest number of refugees within ASEAN? Are you aware? This is something which is perhaps a little bit surprising, but it is actually Malaysia which has the first. The numbers are written on the slide, but Malaysia has close to 200,000 people who, well, it hasn't ratified the convention, so they're not officially called refugees, so this is why it's in brackets here. But according to the UNHCR, they're close to 200,000, of whom 89% come from Myanmar. In Thailand, as we can see here, it's between 80 to 90,000, particularly around the border areas where they have been for a very long period of time. And I think it was just last week, actually, Shanti's Karen, or the office in the BRC, was looking at also its establishment, or 50 years since the beginning of the refugees from there. And so this situation has been continuing for 5 decades, we can see from this, without any sign, unfortunately, of people knowing what their future will be or any way out from this situation as well. Indonesia also has just over 12,000. Actually, a large proportion of them are from Afghanistan, or also Rohingya people, for example, as a Muslim country. But one of the particular characteristics of Thailand, actually, is while refugees, according to the convention, are not being accepted by Thailand. However, there are many people who are in Thailand for a very long period of time and actually naturalize as Thai citizens. This is one of the long-held policies of the Thai government. And this is something that actually has been continued since the World War II period. And so, well, how could we say that we have now then, for example, the second or third generation people who are now, well, becoming Thai people? There is, well, some forced assimilation as one element. However, the majority of these people, they come, even if they come in through illegal routes, they become, well, legal register and then naturalize and become Thai citizens. This is actually the very long-held history in Thailand. And within the current situation, according to the Thailand's Ministry of Labour, of the 3.4 million people who are migrant workers registered in Thailand, about 2.26 million of them are from Myanmar, 446,000 from Cambodia, and 324,000 from Laos. So these three countries together form about 90% of the total amount of migrant workers in Thailand. Looking at the, well, should we say, plus alpha, or the additional elements, this is only an estimate or a guess, of course, but I think that there is probably about 5 or 6 million further people who have come from Myanmar, who are in Thailand. But looking at who is recognized as a refugee, who is there someone as a displaced person, who is a migrant worker, of course, the lines between these different groups of people, as we see the prolonged situation, or it's quite ambiguous, but they're continuing to live their lives within such a situation. Within the past 2 years, it's also said that there is about 1 million people who will be registering as stateless people in Thailand. And so looking at from this situation, then they will continue, or there is various protection put in place from there. So, for example, children who are born in Thailand after 15 years pass, then, for example, how they can then have education, or once they go through the higher education or university, they become Thai citizens. So this is quite a sort of open policy, which is rather difficult to imagine from the perspective of the situation in Japan. So the situation of Myanmar is indeed very serious. But overall, within ASEAN as well, it's very, within the ASEAN countries, having a single policy or an agreement on how to engage and how to deal with the situation of Myanmar and how to resolve this issue is an ongoing challenge for ASEAN. ASEAN, of course, has the policy of the Asian Way, which has non-intervention policy in other states, which, of course, has both positive and negative aspects. But from the Thailand perspective, to work in a cross-border approach to deal with supporting the many workers, for example, or emergency humanitarian relief in a cross-border way is very challenging within the ASEAN region because of these policies. So looking at both the situation of Myanmar, but also the related issues as well, we would like to hear from Professor Yamada about the overall, looking at the complex crises within the ASEAN region, and looking at this situation when we see also the steps backwards in regards to democratization, the political situation in Myanmar, how looking at the perspective from an academic perspective of peace building. Professor Yamada, over to you. Thank you very much. Before I came here, just until last week, I was in Timor-Leste and also in Bali. It was actually my first time to visit there for a project in about 40 years, actually. And in Bali, at the end of my trip, I visited a rural area and spoke with some of the youth there. And at the end of that discussion, what we were talking about, we actually said at the end, Shanti, Shanti, Shanti on, and that was our sort of final words that we shared together in the discussions, and then I came here. So after sharing that space last week in Bali and then being here at Shanti's event today, and also as Mr. Sanbe was sharing also the deeper meaning of Shanti, is something that I think for them as well, seeing as they are hoping for peace, really from the bottom of their hearts, very sincerely, I felt very strongly reminded of this as I'm standing here today. Bali is a place where Hindu Buddhism, or the very place of strong, deep faith, and I am particularly working on looking at how we can build peace. Of course, this is not something that just I can do, but as a researcher from the academic perspective, or also somebody involved in various different activities as well, looking at what kind of way, what kind of shape we can work to build peace together, and working together with my students and so on from various approaches in this work. So today, I would like to, well, we already are a little bit over time, so there are particularly 3 points that I would like to share today. One is, actually, as was introduced, I'm working in a very new academic association on emergency humanitarian relief. And through, as was shared with Shanti as well, I've been involved in various aspects. And so this research association at Waseda University on February 1st, actually, we held a conference, and the theme of this was the so-called humanitarian peace nexus, or what is the nexus between emergency humanitarian relief and peace building. This was the very title of our conference, actually, but I would like to, as an introduction, speak a little bit about this nexus, what it refers to, then about the situation in the ASEAN region, as Mr. Hata has already referred to as well, and in regards to, as Ms. Nakahara has already shared about the situation in Myanmar. So I will be speaking briefly to add some thoughts in regards to that. And the final point today, I will be speaking about the role of civil society, including NGOs, in the field of peace building. So, first of all, sorry, I think we've gone one slide too far forward. Thank you very much. So first of all, well, peace building is something which is really quite being shaken at the moment. The points which are written here are looking at some academic aspects, particularly from Western academia in the post-9/11 era, looking at how this can be applied also to countries which are in active conflict as well. This is something where there is a great amount of debate, particularly when we look at the situation in Afghanistan and Iraq, which did not, of course, become the so-called democratic countries that the United States was hoping. Within the academic field as well, there is also a great amount of discussion looking at, well, the field of peace building and how this should be developed. One of the very interesting points which is being raised in regards to this is if we look at the post-Cold War era, where there was, for example, looking at within different religious or ethnic conflicts and so on, moving on to a different era. There is someone called Jennifer Welsh who has written about the looking at the return of history and saying that the post-9/11 world has actually been a return to history as it was before. There are 4 particular points that she raises in regards to this. One is looking at, for example, if we see the emergence of things like IS, the Islamic State, and so through this, these terrorist organizations and so on becoming a great force internationally. The second point is looking, as we can see from President Vladimir Putin, for example, the situation of conflicts over territory, as we see in Crimea. The third, looking at factors in 2015, for example, when we saw the large influx of refugees and migrants to Europe. And the fourth point being looking at within the liberal democracies, the growing economic disparity or inequality within these societies. So she is a Canadian international political theorist who, in her book, The Return of History, talks about these different points. These are, of course, significant developments within this period. But here in the region of Asia, there are many different issues coming in place. And so how do we look at the perspective of Asia from looking at these theories as well? So this is very interesting to look at these aspects. But personally, I think if we look at, for example, the so-called neoliberalism and so on, but as we see the going backwards in regards to democracy in various parts of Southeast Asia, for example, I have also published books about this several years ago as well. But actually what is really the challenge here is looking in post-conflict societies, how the local or liberal democracy can be considered. But this way of thinking of what do we mean when we talk about liberal, not only enforcing this from outside, but looking at why is this so-called liberal even necessary in the first place, thinking of this from a local perspective and bringing this into institutions. So, for example, why in Afghanistan is education for girls necessary for the country's development? So having an understanding from these questions from the first place is one of the things which is important. This is something which Roland Paris has been putting forward as an idea in his writing Institutionalization Before Liberalization. And not saying that all of these thinkings are necessarily accurate, but looking at, for the countries which can be a target of this, having their own different traditional systems and seeing how these can be, or how these should be considered as well, shall we say. So looking at the local culture and history and so on, and how this should be preserved or respected, and then based on this to build up from there. So rather than an externally imposed institution. So this is somewhat of a hybrid way of thinking, or a hybrid approach is what he has put forward and what is becoming within the mainstream of thinking within the area of peace building. So in essence, looking at what that particular country, the values that it already has, and not looking at destroying these and imposing something from externally. This is something which is generally held now or accepted largely as a consensus. So in regards to this then, within the ASEAN region or Southeast Asia, and within my words today, actually the photograph which I showed was actually taken at the Matterhorn. But I am a researcher in regards to the Asian region, but last year from September until December, I was actually based as an exchange professor at a university in Italy. And so I was teaching together with different exchange students and so on, sharing information, exchanging opinions and so on with them. And within that, particularly looking at the EU, which of course Italy is a part of, and looking at the rule of law and democracy and so on as the shared values within the EU. And the students in Europe, they were referring to themselves very much as European citizens. So, but without really sharing, or without sharing these common values, as EU citizens, it's not possible to become part of the EU. At the same time as well, looking at, if not able to share these different values, then it means, for example, something like leaving the EU, as we saw in the case of the United Kingdom and Brexit. There are now 27 countries which are part of the EU, but within the current situation now, they are looking at the different countries, for example, such as Hungary, or the different sort of going back against this, and the EU is not really together as one at the moment, it could be said. But overall, the EU is based on the shared concept of democracy, human rights, and the rule of law as conditions of membership. As Mr. Hata mentioned as well, ASEAN, of course, has the ASEAN Way, which is based on the principles both of non-intervention and of consensus. Within the 10 countries, or quite soon with Timor-Leste also joining ASEAN, it's likely to become 11 members. But if even one of these is in opposition, then ASEAN cannot reach a declaration. So this is one of the very fundamental or core principles of ASEAN, no interference in internal affairs. And so looking at a regional mechanism, ASEAN and EU, of course, do have some points in common, but also completely different in some other ways, I think it can be said. However, when we look at the trends internationally, with many more countries placing their own country's interests first in the priority, looking more internally focused, for example, ASEAN at the same time is also, as shared in today's discussions and reports as well, is not necessarily moving in an ideal direction in regards to the political situation. Looking at, for example, we see autocratic, or also the military regime in Myanmar. We can also see succession within different families, for example, in non-democratic ways. And these different questions from both experts in ASEAN and also Myanmar, people say that some is even really in a situation almost that could be compared to a civil war. I'm sure that Ms. Nakahara is also in very challenging circumstances in Myanmar today as well. Looking at, for example, there's a discussion now about the upcoming potential election, whether that should take place or not, and in what way, looking at the role or the influence of China within the international community and also ASEAN, how that will be received. And this is something where there is a great question mark in place at the moment. So within such an environment, based on this, well, ASEAN, however, since 1967, it has continued. Well, of course, there were questions of people thinking that maybe it's very fragile, it would not last. However, ASEAN has continued as a gathering, a very broad, but also being able to achieve consensus in certain times. For example, in the year within 2025, looking at the also mechanisms for conflict resolution within the region, bringing in different mechanisms or ways to resolve disputes as well, within its mechanisms as well, looking at, for example, within the International Court of Justice and using international community or standards as well. This is something where we see, for example, China's actions in the South China Sea and its illegal actions there. But in the case of Timor-Leste, for example, in its conflict with Australia or dispute with Australia, has also utilized the international International Court of Justice and so on for resolution of these disputes as well. So as I've already shared, we can see that there is a sense of a critical situation within ASEAN at the moment, within these different divisions and so on as well. The United States, of course, representing, or as a superpower within the country, but having its priority on its own interests, and then also seeing this struggle over hegemony between the US and China and the divisions this is causing within ASEAN. However, at the same time, within ASEAN as well, looking at the different or its different democratic challenges, such as, for example, corruption or autocratic regimes, dictatorial regimes, are also passing on from one generation to another in regards to leadership and so on as well, or as was already mentioned in regards to the situation in Myanmar. So there are different, looking at, for example, the 5-point consensus of ASEAN is trying to come forward, but not necessarily having progress really in relation to this, but seeing the need for further attention in regards to this. So needless to say, this is a great concern. And within this as well, the civil society role in peace building. In the case of Japan, the concept of human security and also looking at human security within the international community is something very central for Japan. And so looking at what kind of efforts should be made in this regards. There are efforts from the government parts, from the United Nations, and also from different other agencies as well. And of course, it goes without saying, also looking from the perspective of global governance as well, looking at, for example, civil society and NGOs having more and more influence, shall we say. However, when we look at Japan and the concept of human security is being set as one of the pillars of its diplomatic policy, and this is something which is a very important point, I believe. And so in relation to this and the roles of civil society, there is this diagram of the 3-layered pyramid. This is based on the thoughts of John Paul Lederach, who since around the 1970s has been having, it was very innovative ideas at that time, but within his theory looking at from the 3 different levels, from the top leaders, the mid leaders, and the grassroots leaders as well, and how they can build together as this force for peace. This is something which now, through different networks, for example, the role of the media and so on as well, it's not necessarily in this same form. Sometimes the form has perhaps changed through different developments and so on as well. Gatherings of civil society, the mid-levels and top leaders or political leaders of society, for how that influence can be engaged in different ways. And so in conclusion, as I have continued to share in regards to this, looking at within the Japanese society and the concept of human security and how Shanti has for many years continued to work towards this as well within social, cultural, and educational work, and this role has been very significant. When we look from the political perspective as well, where there are many different issues, and this is also spreading, having resonance on economic situation as well, how we can have these social, cultural, and educational activities coming forward really as very important elements within building an international network for peace, and the role for that will be particularly significant. So I would like to end my presentation with those words. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Yamada, for your input. Shanti likes to use the word development theory in its unique way of Asia in an ideal manner, and to put it into practice. Your input reminded me of Shanti's vision as well. It is almost time to wrap up. I would like to speak about, as a moderator, what is the Shanti way based on Buddhism and why this resonated. There was a sense of affinity in a region in Southeast Asia where the basis is Theravada Buddhism. I would like to keep it concise with a few slides. Within the ASEAN countries, within the ASEAN region, Shanti engages in many research. There are 10 ASEAN countries, for example, how to partner with a strategic rival in ASEAN. It's almost a multiple choice, a dual choice between which rival would you use strategically speaking. And this is a research done in the past decade or so, it's a head-on collision, head-on competition between U.S. and China. But with some changes under the Trump administration, ASEAN is taking a multilateral approach, diplomacy in its diplomacy. At least that is true for Thailand, where I live. The awareness is Thailand should be friendly, should be aligned with in all directions. So what are the geopolitical concerns, on the other hand, that ASEAN has? First, off the bat, Israel and Hamas issue. Myanmar, because of the principle of non-intervention, it ranks number 7 as a concern. On the other hand, aggressive behavior by China in the South China Sea is also a concern, depending on the country. Russia and Ukraine accounting for close to 40%. You may wonder why Myanmar ranks so low. Depending on the country. For example, Thailand has a very strong concern about the Myanmar crisis. Next slide. Can we go to the next slide? Is it working? Another question as part of the survey. Where is the most popular destination in ASEAN? There is a high degree of trust towards Japan, more than towards EU, more than towards the US. There's a very strong sense of trust towards Japan among the ASEAN. The ASEAN public would like to visit Japan more than anyone else. So there is much faith in Japan and also in the Japanese culture that is apparent from the research over several years, in fact, which begs the question, how do we respond to this result? We have a sense of awareness we are self-aware about a Japanese NGO. Shanti's vision is to coexist with the ASEAN people in everything that we do. And we have to proceed with that mindset under the keywords of mission, passion, dream, and honesty, and continue to be self-aware. We are really running out of time, so I'd like to ask Ms. Nakahara and Professor Yamada to wrap up by delivering a short message of 1 minute each. Where should Shanti head to? Which direction? How should Shanti engage in a peace building? Ms. Nakahara? Thank you very much for this opportunity. One of the strengths as an NGO in my day-to-day activities as Myanmar, I feel that our strength is flexibility, agility in operations, neutrality or rather impartiality in our position continuously to coexist with the people, to venture on this journey together with the people we assist or serve. And in the long run, I have faith that these activities would lead to a peaceful society. Our projects in refugee camps across borders, in Thailand, meaning across the border, in Thailand, should be part of our site to collaborate with the local staff as well in our activities. Thank you very much. Professor Yamada? As far as I'm concerned, I've addressed today's theme from a economical standpoint. There is a political deadlock. There is a deadlock in the region. The economy is being dragged along with the political situation. As addressed, Japan, in its economic ties with ASEAN countries, since the post-war reparations, those ties have deepened, but now there's even more a stronger need for mind-to-mind connections as indicated by the Fukuda doctrine. So Japan's role, political role included, and how the youth can interact with each other would provide the impetus for a peaceful society. Shanti's endeavors, including the library activities, the educational, social assistance, would increase in importance. I was made aware of that acutely today through today's session. Thank you to the two panelists. I appreciate it. Shanti's activities centered around society, the social rather, and the cultural education will continue across borders. Emergency humanitarian assistance, the need for that may emerge at any time, including in Japan as well. This is about sharing the suffering and to work together. And lastly, by creating connections between people, we can contribute to the achievement of a better society. It could be through a policy statement or networking to work together, partner with government and other NGOs with multiple stakeholders. I may not be the best moderator, but thank you for your patience. I will return the microphone at this time. With that note, we welcome Eri Yamamoto, head of the Secretariat, Secretary General, to say a few words to close.
Thank you, everybody, for joining this event today for these hours amongst your very busy schedules to share this time with Shanti. And thank you also for standing together with the activities of Shanti. And we would like to take this opportunity to express our appreciation to all who have supported our work in many ways as well. Professor Yamada, thank you so much for speaking at our event today. And we think that what you shared was very important points for us to consider our future work as Shanti as well. Thank you very much. Well, he was still with us, Mr. Yagisawa. I had so many opportunities to speak with him on countless occasions about the future of Shanti and our path forward from here. At the end of last year, we also spoke for around 1 hour, but there was really no end to what we had to discuss together. And so we ended our phone call saying, well, when we have the next General Assembly, let's continue this conversation. And that ended up being the last chance I had to speak with him. I wish that he could also be with us today. We had planned to have him in Japan at the moment, and he was looking forward so much to seeing everybody for the assembly as well. Today's topic has been, when we're looking at the future of Shanti from now as well, this is something which Mr. Yagisawa was also himself very concerned or thinking about as well. As I heard all of the speakers today, I've once again thought about these words, about living together and learning together, and how we can together build a peaceful society, thinking about what we should do for this purpose, and feeling also that continuing these efforts, persistence is indeed one of the important points. Unfortunately, as we have heard today, conflicts around the world are not only are they not decreasing, they are continuing to increase. Japan is also a country which lost the trust of other Asian countries due to the war, becoming a country which was even the focus of hatred from other countries. But Japan being able to recover the trust of its neighbors is because of efforts to look or to seek for real peace and for people to people, because of these individuals who embody this within their lives as well. And I truly believe that Mr. Yagisawa was indeed one of these individuals. The dignity of human beings, or placing their dignity and happiness at the center, working together to deal with different challenges. I believe that Mr. Yagisawa truly embodied these values, this vision of Shanti, and placing great value on this, what it is that we need to do as we go forward, as well as to continue to protect and continue opportunities to nurture education, to give people the capacity to live, to continue mutual exchange proactively in a way where people can respect each other's cultures, to continue to deliver hope to people and particularly children in difficult challenges. To continue these efforts and to embody this is what we can do now. We have many people, including our local staff members from different countries, joining us online today as well. And within all of the local staff of Shanti, there are also people who have been working with us for 20, 30 years, even longer than Japanese staff members, and truly living this vision and these values of Shanti. Mr. Yagisawa and all of the other leaders, the pioneers of Shanti, within their seeds of their actions that they have continued to share us. We are now looking at how we can continue to ensure that these do bloom, to ensure that these are strong flowers deeply in the ground, that even when they are being shaken, they will continue to grow, to never give up, and we will continue to share these seeds as we can as well. We will continue to work together for the path forward for Shanti with all of you. So thank you for your continued efforts from now as well. And thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Ms. Yamamoto. With these words, we would like to bring a close to today's event. We have two pieces of information we would like to share from the Secretariat at the end. First is to ask for your cooperation in a questionnaire. If you have any messages for the speakers, words of encouragement for Shanti, and so on, please feel free to share them. We will include the link in the chat, and it has also been shared in email as well. As the second point as well, we'd like to introduce some of the craft and handiwork which is being created by people in Asia. This is items which were created by people from the Klong Toi slum, where Mr. Yagisawa was living. We have these items here, including these bags, which are very strong bags made by, actually, we've heard that many of the partners of Japanese staff who are working in Bangkok really love these. You can also purchase these from the QR code on the screen as well. We have also these embroidered pen cases and many different items which are available through our Craft Aid project as well. This is some of the projects or the items from Thailand. And for those of you who are here in person, we also have a booth with these on sale at the venue as well. So once again, thank you everybody for joining us for today's event.